Welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting of June 2nd. May we have a roll?
Commissioner Foley.
Present.
Commissioner Ibrahimian.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Gowell.
Present.
We'll move to the consent items, and we have under here consideration of the minutes of May 5th.
Move to accept them. Second.
So moved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Then they are now accepted. And at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Steiger.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is give a brief overview of our plans for a strategic plan, which we will put the process in place in July. A number of reasons we waited till July to do that, not the least of which is we have a number of people out during the month of June, so we want to make sure we have our full complement of staff here during the summer months for this process. And what I'd like to do is just quickly show you, and I only have 2 slides here, and talk a little bit about the process. I very strongly believe in the process of inclusion, and that's why this is so important. This particular strategic planning process will involve not all, but most of the employees of GWP, along with a number of other stakeholders. And the reason I put this diagram up is to give you a sense as to the involvement of all stakeholders within this process. And if you notice, we have city manager, we have yourselves, the commission, we have other city departments, along with a design team. The design team is very, very important, and we will create that momentarily, and that will be created by utilizing a number of staff members and some of the stakeholders to develop what it is we're actually designing and how we're going to get there. We have a framework in place already for the process, but this will nail it down, and I'll show you exactly in a minute how we're going to get there and how long this process will take. And essentially, once you have that particular framework in place, we then infuse a good portion of our employee base over the course of 16 weeks. This will be a 16-week process that will do a number of things. It will ultimately provide our strategic plan. It will identify the key elements of the industry moving forward in terms of where GWP needs to be within the industry and what the industry issues will be, and then how do we get there through a plan. Not only will it present the plan, but obviously through the inclusion it creates a sense of teamwork and, most importantly, ownership. I think it's incredibly important to have the folks within GWP who will work the strategic plan over the course of the next few years to own it, understand it, and be part of it. So that's a very, very important part of the plan. So the plan isn't just a plan, it's a vehicle for ownership also. Essentially, this is what we've laid out in terms of our schedule. Obviously, we're in the contracting phase in terms of putting together the design team. We will be employing a consultant as a facilitator. That was also on that last chart. And so we'll start to mobilize in the first 3 weeks of July. We will, at the same time, to start to develop a future outlook report, which essentially looks at what the key issues in the industry are, along with the issues for GWP and its customer base, putting those together and determining where we need to be in terms of a future outlook. Then we get very, very specific in terms of what is it that we at GWP must do. This is the actual heart of the strategic plan. How do we take the future outlook and transition it to a plan that works for us and for our customers? And then finally, we ratify it, again, coming back through the entire inclusion process along with our stakeholders. So this is the schedule, this is the process, and what we're essentially trying to do is do an external scan, an organizational scan, a look at the challenges that will face GWP in the future, and then develop the typical mission, values, vision, and key result areas that we will measure what we do as we move forward. We will provide goals, objectives, and action plans and action schedules to to correlate with the strategic plan, and it'll be very much a moving document that will be updated every year, but this will provide the basis for where we're going. So that's where we are today. We will start the plan first week of July and move forward according to that schedule. Now, I know I'd like to be able to say to you we have a lot sooner, and maybe in the past when I was a little bit more impetuous, I might say we should be moving quicker. But given what the issues in the industry are today, and they're pretty significant. We've got significant issues at every level of focus that we've identified. On the supply side, we have critical issues that will impact where we're going to be, not only in the long term, but even now in the nearer term, in terms of both electric and water supply. Reliability is continually a problem for all utilities, and GWP certainly is in that position also. So we need to have a plan that continues to improve reliability and then holds it, sustains it. And then finally, customer service, which is why we're here in the first place, really needs a good, fresh look in terms of what it is that our customers need, what do they want, and what do we need to provide to be able to meet the challenges of the future. And I think as of today, you can start to see where we are, not only as it relates to reliability and supply, but cost. The costs of both electric and water continue to go up. Energy costs right now are escalating at a fairly extreme rate. So we obviously have some challenges ahead. That's where we're going with this plan. Any questions?
If we could go to your first slide, I wanted to ask a little bit about, you have some of your stakeholders identified there. Let's,
Sure.
Is that do you see all these groups as comprising the stakeholders, or are there other groups outside the?
There are other groups outside, and primarily customer groups.
Okay.
Yes, that we will put in there. We didn't show that, and I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Besides customer groups, were there others too that you had thought of?
Well, there could be, and again, it depends upon how we look at this, but we certainly want to have the political element, so we'll probably have, and a subset of city manager is actually city council. Okay, that's the way we look at that.
Right.
So city council should be in there too.
Okay. Other questions?
Just have a quick question. Do you see this as a new organizational chart, or design team is just a temporary box where the design concept takes place and afterwards it goes back to the original organizational structure?
That's a good question. Yeah, this is not a permanent organization chart. This is the chart that gets us through the development of the plan. We actually are reorganizing slightly, and we will, again, announce that in July. So we will have a new organization to show you in July. Fortunately, it's more of an organizational tweak than a major reorganization, which is good news for us, because what it really means is that based on what I've seen, I think our organization is well poised. There are a couple of key changes that will be made. As I said, they'll be in place in July, but it won't change the focus all that much from where we are today. And what it really does is allows us, again, to come back into those three areas of supply, reliability, and customer service. Next meeting, I'll have it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Steiger, you mentioned about the consultant. Do we have them on board already, or we are going through the process?
We are in the process.
We are in the process.
Yes.
All right.
Should be on board within the next 2 to 3 days.
Any questions? One last question, just to clarify, the box that says design team is comprised of individuals who are not only from the 5 boxes below it, but also from other stakeholder
Yes.
groups, including groups that are not shown on the chart.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your next item, then.
Excuse me?
Next item.
Okay, the only other item I wanted to bring to your attention today is the fact that we, along with all city departments, have been going through a very rigorous budget development and review process over the last month. GWP has done a significant amount of work. We'll have the full budget, the final budget for you next month, but I did want you to know that we've taken a hard look at what we are, both our revenue sources and our expenditures. We've had to do a significant amount of budget reductions, particularly on the electric side, because of some of the costs that we've seen escalating substantially, as I just mentioned, on that side. Water has already, as you know, earlier this year, come forth to explain the pressures of cost escalation and rate increases. Electric side, we are committed to at least the next year remaining flat on the base rate in terms of any additional rate increases. Unfortunately, on the adjustable part of our rate, there will be a significant increase, and that is a direct result of the escalation we're seeing right now in fuels, primarily natural gas, but all fuels right now are escalating at a dramatic rate, far greater than actually we'd expected. So we will see an increase in cost on the electric side. It's not a rate increase, a base rate increase. It's flat, but unfortunately there will be a rate escalation as a direct result of our fuel costs. So we'll have the full budget for you next month. Right now, I'm fairly confident that what we've put together is balanced and will work for us, but it's a very, very tight budget.
Please.
Are we doing anything to notify the customers about this potential rate increase based on the adjustment of the commodity portion?
We will, yes, we will. As soon as we have this budget nailed down, which will be in the next probably 2 weeks, we will.
And will the rate hit the next bill, or when would that take place?
Well, the adjustable rate adjusts as it goes up, and, it's a constant adjustment. So what we want to do is inform the customers that that fuel costs and purchase power costs are going up, so they'll see a gradual increase. The only good news is that over time, over the course of the next year, we'll also see a slight decrease. But yes, this continues to go up on a monthly basis.
So we're projecting a slight decrease next year for the adjustable portion of it?
In the next budget cycle, in the 09-10 budget cycle, we're projecting a budget decrease on the adjustable part only, yes.
Okay, because I thought the adjustable portion is the commodity piece where it is based on the fuel and the PPA.
Yeah.
So what are we projecting next year that would cause a decrease?
Well, we see natural gas is spiking over the course of the next 6 months. That's what we see right now. And then long-term forecast is for natural gas to plateau and come down a little bit. So that's what we're basing our forecast on.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see. We can only forecast, that's all.
But yeah, it would be helpful to notify the customers as soon as possible because it impacts them greatly. I mean,
Absolutely.
even a 5 or 10% increase is a lot to a typical customer.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
There was an earlier effort, as I recall, to provide some kind of hedging mechanism, I think, where the city actually, or GWP was actually going to own some natural gas sources. Has that done anything to let's say, cushion the...
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers for you, but the answer is yes.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Any other questions on this? Next item, I think we have power system at this point.
Okay.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'm here to report the outage report for May 2008. And as you can see on your handouts, during this period we had 5 high voltage circuit outage events. And the first one was on May 13th, and it went all the way to May 31st. Now, 2 of these outages were caused by Mylar balloons, which I think even the state of California is considering banning because of its potential again for short-circuiting our overhead circuits. So, as a result of these 5 outages, the reliability indices for the rolling 12 months are now as follows. For the SAFE, which is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index, we have now an index of 0.87, which is an improvement over the last month of 1.14. And as you can see in your handout, that we calculated the number of customers affected by these 5 outages to be 70,710. On the next page, we have the SAIDI, or the System Average Interruption Duration Index, which for the past 12 months was 34.1, which is again an improvement over the last month. and also quite an improvement over the last 12-month rolling average. And that translates, this reliability index translates to about an average outage time of 34 minutes per customer. And then the third index is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, or the KD, which was 0.66. Again, well, I won't say again, this is a little bit of higher value than last month, and higher also than last year's 12-month index. And what this says is that for the customers who did experience an outage, there was an average of 39 minutes per interruption. In other words, it's taken us a little bit longer to resolve an outage. So, do you have any questions?
Please.
I just have one quick one. I mean, I like these numbers and look like this downtrend. But I guess I didn't see it in the past, and with this one is, what is our goal for each of these indices? I mean, shouldn't we put that on there, even though we see a decreasing trend, which is good for most of these indicators, but can we put a goal that you're trying to set?
We can, although the best way to interpret the indices is, of course, to look at the trend. The reason why, I mean, in my personal view, it's very hard to set a goal is because we cannot compare it with anything. If we look at the indices for, let's say, our neighboring utilities, they use a different set of parameters in calculating the index, their indices versus what we use. And so there's no general agreement, even among utilities, on how this can be measured. For example, one utility may consider a 1-minute outage, as a contributory to the index. Other utilities might not. They might say, well, if it's less than 10 minutes, that it's not part of the index. So, but we certainly can look at it and see, what kind of, like you said, goal that we should aspire to as far as the indices are concerned. But like I said, this will be only for us probably. We can't have a benchmark, comparing what our goal is with the others. Again, because of the variability in calculating the indices.
Right, and I wasn't getting to compare myself to other utilities, just within our own parameters, because I know customer service has some goals, and it would be nice to see this goal too, based on these indices.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can look at that.
Any other questions?
Well, I suppose one approach to that, a business approach, would be the cost of the investment for reducing the number is greater than the cost to your customers of having the outage. Then maybe that's a reasonable point at which further investment is not really warranted.
Right. There's a point of diminishing
but I don't know if it's easy for you to make that calculation.
Yeah, we can.
I did have a question. When you say last year 12-month, is that like an average 12-month period, or is that last year during, let's say, the month of May or something like that?
Yes, it was on that month going backwards.
In the previous year,
right.
I see. Okay, all right. Well, these are favorable numbers, and you've generally shown in my tenure here a reduction, which is to be commended to your staff as well as you.
Thank you. Now, I understand from Sheila that there will be a presentation by Meredith Manzano following my presentation. Is that true, or that's not it? Okay.
President Miller and members of the Commission, my name is Meredith Manzano, and I am the Legislative Analyst for Glendale Water and Power. I'm here today to give you an update on two bills which I addressed at the previous meeting, and that would be SB 1499, which is more commonly known as the Mylar Balloon Bill, and AB 2724, which is more commonly known as the Copper Theft Bill. To let you know, I actually have good news on both. Both these bills have passed out of the House of Origin, which means they'll be heard in the opposite houses. On SB 1499, the Mylar Balloon Bill, if you recall, that would prohibit the sale or distribution of Mylar balloons and balloons with metallic attachments in January 2010. At this point, we do not have a scheduled hearing date. As was pointed out to you, we did have 2 additional outages due to Mylar balloons, so this is something that we're very concerned about. It is still our understanding it will be somewhat of an uphill battle. We understand that Senator Scott and certainly Burbank continue to work very diligently on this issue, and we're hoping for a very positive outcome on this particular bill. And for AB 2724, we still have a great track record. We have no negative votes. It continues to move forward. We have a hearing date set for June 10th of 2008. And on this bill, we only expect positive things. And on both bills, we've done letters of support. We also did a floor alert on 1499. And on 2724, we recently did a second letter of support. And that would be the current status on both.
Thank you very much. Were there questions? Very encouraging, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Meredith.
I just have one comment about the copper theft. I saw the issue in the source, and that I really like that, and it really convey the message across to our customers that if you see some kind of crime, then just report it, even though the criminal might not read the source like you mentioned in the past. At least our customers will and report the crime if it does happen. So thank you for putting that together.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I will now present a short slideshow on how we provided service to the Americana at Brand. And if I can...
I think I hear it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now, Americana at Brand is a large project, comparatively speaking, and what we have is really an area where we are providing services to 6 buildings, and this is a schematic representation of what we did to provide service to Americana. Now, the feeders that provide service to Americana come from 2 stations. One is the Columbus substation, which is very close by, and then the other is Tropico substation, which is more towards the south of Glendale. And as you can see from the schematic, these are the 6 buildings, Building A up to Building F, that we have provided services to. And these SW blocks here are essentially switches. So what this drawing is showing is that these feeders identified by number and a letter, C being that the feeder came from Columbus, and T, saying that the feeder came from Tropico. What the drawing shows is that each switch has 3 feeders that can be switched to provide the service to that particular building. So in the case of this switch that I'm pointing to with the arrow, you can see that there are a 2 Columbus and a 4 Columbus feeder and a 9 Tropico feeder in that switch. And this 2 Columbus feeder is feeding Building D. But in case something happens to this feeder, then we can have either this feeder or this feeder come in to provide the alternate service. So we have designed a lot of redundancy onto the Americana services. Although I have to let you know that the transfer to another feeder is not going to be automatic. In other words, there's an outage on one feeder, our crews will have to go and switch. But the fact of the matter is the feeders are already there, and therefore the switching time is really expedited. On the next slide, this is a capital improvement project that expanded the capacity of our Tropico substation. Again, in anticipation of the Americana project, but also in anticipation of future load growth in that area, where Americana is. And I'm sure you're very familiar with that. It's in the Brand, Central, Columbus area, Broadway, Colorado, and Wilson. Now, on the Tropico substation, we added to the existing two 12 kV transformers, another two new transformers, and the picture shows one of the new of the two new transformers being installed, actually. And we also expanded the so-called ring bus, which is a means of interconnecting the 12 kV feeders in the station so that it's a more flexible setup. And as a result of these two new transformers, we have added 4 new 12 kV feeders from Tropico. Now, the challenges in providing the electrical services to Americana are, their aggressive schedule. We actually started work on these services in February of 2008, and they set for everybody, contractors and GWP, a deadline of April 15 for all major construction to be finished. So we have to meet that schedule. While we're working on Americana, there's street work and street blockages simultaneously happening. As you know, street work is primarily by Public Works. There's this coordination with Americana contractors. There's a lot of contractors trying to finish their part of the work, and we are getting in conflict with them. And then, of course, there's the access to electrical rooms. We will go to the electrical room, and it's filled with, extraneous materials, that prevented us from really going in there. And then there's this mishaps. Of course, mishaps is defined as unfortunate accidents, and there were 2 actually, and they're part of our challenges. The first mishap is a flooded transformer vault room. We installed the transformers, and Americana started to test their equipment, and all of a sudden our transformer room flooded. Okay, so we had to dry out the equipment and wait for it to be re-energized, certified to be re-energized by the Building and Safety Department. And then one of the second mishap is a blown bus duct. This is something that we're still dealing with. Just to give you an understanding of what this bus duct is doing, this is a typical bus duct. You have the transformers, and then the bus duct collects the power output of the transformers and then directs them over to the main panel. So this is on the other side of the transformer vault room, and that's also part of the bus duct. But on the overall, Americana is online and successfully operating. This is the most important slide that I'm going to be showing you. This is the project team that was responsible for the Americana project, and a lot of the people that belong to these sections of essentially the electrical services group of GWP are here in the audience. Starting with the system dispatch, they were involved in the switching procedures for the feeders. We have the GWP construction and operations. We have the substation people, who did the work at Tropico. We have the underground and overhead construction groups. The underground is responsible for getting the cables in from Tropico over to Americana, and also for installing the transformers and the wiring in the vaults at Americana. And then the overhead, to remove the existing overhead line that used to be in that area before they did groundbreaking for Americana. We have the meter shop who tested and installed 338 residential meters and 11 commercial meters for Americana. And of course, we have the electrical engineering who did all the design work for this to happen. We have the underground, the overhead, the substation relay group. We have the service planners who coordinated very closely with Americana to design their transformer on-site facilities. We have the inspectors who made sure that what Americana constructed was to our specifications. We have the mapping and drafting who provided for the construction drawings. And we have, of course, the planning section who made sure that with the addition additional capacity at Tropico and the additional load that our system is stable. And the others here, which is represented by a circle, are other city departments. Primarily is the building safety, who provided us with the go-ahead to energize the electrical services at Americana. So that, in essence, is how we did the services at the Americana brand. Do you have any questions?
With the bus duct that was blown, I guess that was recent, right?
Right, that was very recent.
And how long did that last? Were they able to switch it to get power from another source, or did that affect the
Yes,
power?
we were able to temporarily hook up the service panel to our transformers using cables. But eventually, Americana will have to replace the bus duct.
And how long was the power outage, and did it affect the whole property or just a portion?
It's just the building where the transformer vault room is located, and that's the building off of Central Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Regarding the infrastructure improvement that we made to be able to provide service to Americana, was most of it reimbursed by the developer, or we paid some of it?
May I answer that question? Part of it was reimbursed by Americana. All the electrical services work that went into the 6 buildings were completely, totally reimbursed. A portion of the distribution system from Tropico over to Americana was reimbursed, but like I said, only a portion of that cost. And the reason is because some of the work that we did from Tropico really is for our reliability and system improvement, not necessarily specifically for Americana. So that portion that was for Americana was reimbursed.
Commendation if you don't want.
You'll be, I see you have an item here on your recognition of your staff. Is that a separate item? Or
Yes, a separate item. It will be done by, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Yes, I was wondering if all the people who are represented in this chart stand up and have yourselves recognized by the commission. Combination of construction and engineering.
I'd like to, first of all, offer my sincere thanks, congratulations, and admiration to this group for doing an incredibly good job in a very, very contracted period of time. Dean did a good job of explaining what we did and the time constraints, but when you look at really what was done and the time constraint that we were under, it's significant. And so we owe the group an awful lot to get in, and when we were in on time. Americana opened. There were no problems on our part. The mishaps you saw, unfortunately, were not our mishaps, and we were there to help out. But I also don't want to miss the fact that just about all GWP was impacted by this project, and I think everyone contributed very well to getting Americana in business by May 1st. So again, I want to thank this group very much so, and thank all GWP for doing a great job.
I wanted to comment, we really don't have too much of an opportunity to go out and visit you, and I sincerely appreciate your coming in here and listening to the first part of the discussion here so we could greet you. Your work is essential. I was out at the Americana. There's a lot of people there having a great time. Businesses are flourishing, and it's affecting a lot of other people. You know, the children of the people who run the businesses are being educated through this and so on. It wouldn't have been possible without your work, and you deserve a great deal of thanks, from this commission as well as the ratepayers for everything you've done. So thank you very much. I think some of the other commissioners may have some comments.
Well, I just wanted to thank you also, and I just want to remind you, your first priority should be safety every day. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
And also want to express my sincere appreciation for getting the Americana complete on time. I know it was a big fanfare during May, and I know it wasn't without any appreciation that they mentioned anything about GWP and how how it was on time because of what the work that you guys did for the department and for Americana. So I'm sure Caruso and his team is appreciative of you guys, and I hope they maybe send you guys something. I'm not sure they did or not, but on behalf of the commission and myself and even my family who visited the Americana pretty much on a weekly basis, I want to thank you for all the work that you guys put through and trying to get that done on time.
I also just want to commend the whole GWP for everything they did. Not everybody, not just the people that are here with us today, but everybody that worked so hard on the project and in the city as a whole. Plus, beyond just Americana, we often don't have the opportunity, I guess, to commend you or thank you for your work you do on a daily basis. You've moved on since Americana's up and running now, and we all appreciate everything you do every day. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean.
Mr. Commissioners, I'm Pat Riley. I'm Electrical Superintendent for Glendale Water and Power, and I'm very proud of these guys, too. I know the countless hours, weekends, after hours that they committed themselves to, and it's an extraordinary feat that they really put out to get this done. Over 9,000 man-hours were put into getting this thing completed, so they should be very proud of themselves. They did an outstanding job. So. Yeah. I'm here also because we recently had a few of our employees compete in the LADWP Rodeo, which is an annual event that we've been participating in since approximately 1998, if I can remember right. This year we had 2 apprentice teams that volunteered to take part in this. I want to recognize those guys. We have Bill, I guess we're missing 2 of them. But we do have Ivan Cano and Travis Fonts here. Please stand up, Travis. Travis and Ivan competed against 39 other teams from 8 different utilities, and they came out overall #1. And that's the first time we've ever come out overall #1 in this competition in the 8 years we've been there. So congratulations to them. This is our up-and-coming journeymen and the ones that are going to be taking care of the utility for the coming years. So. And then also, I have the pleasure of introducing to you our most recent and first graduate from our Station Electrician Operator Apprenticeship Program. This is the group that builds and maintains our electrical substations. We initiated this apprenticeship program approximately 4 years ago, and we initially had 4 gentlemen in it. A couple of them dropped out because of the rigors of the training, but the one that has completed it, Marty Edwards. Marty? Marty, as of I believe it was May 16th? April 16th became our first Station Electrician Operator Apprentice Program graduate, and congratulations, Marty. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys. Okay, with that, thank you.
Mr. Riley, thank you, and I'd like to congratulate all of you gentlemen on the great work you did. I read about it in the source. It was a wonderful article, and congratulations once again. Let's see, we now have customer service.
President Miller, members of the Commission, Tammy Valier, Customer Services Administrator. I'm actually just going to pass the baton to Melissa Benson. Melissa, if you haven't met her already, she has done a few presentations here before, but she oversees all of the training for customer services. She also does training for other parts of GWP and other departments in the city, especially those who access the CIS system. But today what she's going to do is provide a review and a tutorial for the GWP online services that are interactive for customers. We just want to remind customers of the site that we have and let them know that there are more features there and tools that they can use other than just paying a bill. So with that, I'll pass this on to Melissa.
Let me get myself set up here. Thank you. Oh, that was exciting. Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Benson, and I'm working with GWP Customer Services. This is a great tool that I'm not sure a lot of people know about. We do have a significant number of our customers who do access this website, do look at it for information and to pay their bills and so forth. But for those who don't, and maybe for some of you who don't, I thought I'd come and talk about it a little bit. Okay. This particular aspect of our website can be accessed two ways. One way is just through the city website. That's our city address. If you do go through that way, there's a city departments link, and you can just click on Glendale Water and Power. Not too hard there. You can also go directly to our website, which is, the address is right up there, and there's a ton of information on here, but I'm just going to talk about eCare, which is accessible through this My Account link right here. This is a screen, once you click on that, this is the screen that'll come up. This screen provides access to two different functions. One is you can just sign in if you already have done so. This is the place where you can access the information. If not, this is the place where you can sign up to have access. I'm a customer. I live here in Glendale, and I've used this since we started it. I absolutely love it. When you do go to sign up, you need three pieces of information. You need your name exactly as it appears on the bill. You need your account number, also exactly as it appears on the bill, and you need your meter number. Now that information is all available on the paper bill, but if you don't have that in front of you, you can call us. Or if you have trouble or you get stuck, please call us. We've got a ton of people in customer service that will walk you through this. If you've got your bill in front of you, though, and you never noticed, your meter number's right there, and we'll take either your water or electric meter. But it has to match exactly. We don't want anybody else accessing your information. Once you've done all that, you just click on Submit. This page comes up, and you've got two things to work on here. One of them is to put your PIN in there, and the other one is to choose one of three options. Do you want e-bill? That's the electronic bill. You get an email saying your bill's ready. The other one is that you receive paper and electronic, which I did for a while, and the other choice is paper only. Here's where we take your email address, which is where we send your e-bill notifications. So if you don't happen to get that, this might be the issue. Maybe if you put down your work email and you've changed jobs, our bill isn't going to find you. So make sure we've got your correct email address. Once you've done that, this is back to the login screen. You just type everything in and hit login. Here's a couple of things that you can do on here. I want to go through some of the choices so you guys know what's available, and so do our customers. On the left-hand side, you can take a look at your billing history. When you click on that, this comes up. It's kind of nice to have a chart or a graph, kind of makes a visual representation of exactly where your money's going. If you'd like, on the right-hand side of this chart, you've got a view your bill link that you can click on. This will let you see your bill and reprint it. So if you've got a printer available and you just can't find your bill, or you want to take a second look, or you want to see your bill from a year ago maybe, you can reprint it from here. Payment history, this will give you just a quick snapshot of all your payments and when they posted. Keep in mind, too, that everything that I'm showing you and everything that customers will see is exactly what we see in the office. So if anybody has a question on this, they can say, well, it's the second or the third item. We're looking at the exact same information, just a little bit different format. Meter reading history, if you want to take a view of that, we give tons of information on this site. You can take a look at all of your meter reading history, and it goes with the property, not just since you've lived there or since you've had a business there. Usage history, this is kind of an interesting screen to go to. You can take a look, in this case, this particular customer, which is not a real customer and not a real address, just in case anyone out there is gulping hard. It's okay, this is made up. But they have both electric and water service. You can take a look at either one. And what this gives you is your consumption history. It gives you graphically, it gives it to you in the table. It just gives you an idea of when you go up and down. Customers tend to have trends. We see that all the time when we're speaking to them. You either hate to be hot, you hate to be cold, you use a lot of water during certain times of the year, maybe less during other times. This gives you an idea of where you're up and where you're down. This is another tool where you can compare your usage with others on your street. There's a couple of different choices, and this is the part of the screen that I'm actually concentrating on right now down here. If you take a look at that, in the dark blue is this customer, in the light blue is everybody else on Kenneth. One caveat, though, if you live on a street that has residential and business, there's no way to separate that. So you might think you're doing great, and really you're the biggest user on your neighborhood. So just a little caveat there. This does not give any private information. You can't say, gosh, my neighbor has a lot of parties, I bet they're using a lot of electricity, and see what they are and compare yourself to them. So it's just on your whole street. You can't look up another particular account. This is a chart of your services. This is a breakdown on everything that you pay for. One of the things we run across quite a bit in customer service is that people think all this money is going to water and power. It is not. Any other charges down here for other departments, such as rubbish and sewer and so forth, those monies go to those departments, but we want to make it convenient for our customers to write one check. So that is something that comes up quite a bit downstairs. If you need help from us, there is a form that you can fill out. Maybe you need a letter of credit or a school verification letter. Maybe you just have a question that you want to ask us. We are available. We've got people committed to answering these inquiries. I know that sometimes it's a perception if you don't call or see somebody in person that it's just going to disappear into the ether. That's not true. So far we have a 100% response rate of 24 hours or less to anything that comes through this site. So please do not hesitate. We want to hear from you. This is another situation in which we want to offer some online service to our customers. If you're adding a new property, you already have an account, you want to add another one, another business as well. I know I speak a lot about residential, but this certainly is open to all of our business customers. If you're moving out, if you're moving around from one address to another here in Glendale, let us know. You can click on either one of those links, any one of the three links, and communicate with us that way. Let us know what you're doing. We'll take care of it for you. What if we were unable to read your meter? If you would like, you want to go out, take a look at your meter, you can fill it in and hit submit, and we will get that from you. If you need help reading your meter, you can call. We'll definitely walk you through it. Okay? But we used to have meter cards you'd send through the mail. You're probably familiar with those little yellow cards. This is more 21st century. You can also pay on this website, and either one of those two links on that front page will link you to the payment process. We take credit cards, debit cards, and checks. Try and make it easy on you. We do accept both Visa and MasterCard at this point. If your debit card has a Visa or MasterCard logo on it, we will accept it. Once you choose one or the other and put your information in, you do get a confirmation page that says, are you sure everything's right? If you're sure, click submit. And that is about as hard as it is to pay with a debit card or credit card. That's it. If you'd prefer to use your checking account, if you just grab your checkbook on a blank check, or really any of the deposit slips either, you'll see both the routing number on the left and the account number on the right. There's a little picture of a check here. I know it's tiny on the screen, but it's bigger when you're on our website, and that tells you where to find those numbers. Just put it in, hit submit, gives you a little verification page. Once you hit submit again, we've got your payment. And at any time, if you have any trouble, or customers out there watching this, any trouble at all, we're here to help you. We want to help you walk through this and use this. We're not here at 1 o'clock in the morning, and if you really want to look at your GWP bill then, it's available. Do you have any questions?
I do. With the comparisons to your neighbors, I think that's great, but can you pick the street that you're comparing, or is it just your street and it picks the addresses?
Yes, just your street.
Okay. All right. Well, I live on Kenneth, and some parts of Kenneth are certain ways, and other parts are different ways. I'm just curious what I'm going to be looking at.
Exactly. And it compares multifamily, commercial, residential,
Right.
so if you live someplace like Chevy Chase, where it winds through the entire gamut of what we've got here, that's a little more difficult.
Okay, great.
Anybody?
I just have one quick question, I guess. I mean, with the coming of AMI or for water or for electric, isn't there a way we can maybe notify the customers if there's a deviation change, like if there's a water leak that the customer doesn't know about? Is the system designed to set up where the customer gets a ping in the email saying that, hey, you have an aberration in your usage, whether that be electricity or water? Can we set something up like that?
Yeah, go ahead. That's definitely something we're talking about.
All of those features are available, and we will develop what types of information we want to give the customer. We could, if we read the meter or ping the meter every 15 minutes or half hour, we could have information available that quickly. As far as automatic responses, that may be available, or it may be a manual process where we review a report and then we send that information out to the customer.
Okay. And how long in the future can we expect to see these things?
I believe this summer we're going to have the business case study available for GWP.
Okay.
Is that right, Craig? Is it July? I'm going to have Craig do it. This is really his project.
Oh.
Craig Keenan, PPC Marketing Manager. I also manage an AMI business case study. We should have that ready for presentation in July. And that will just look at the cost-benefit analysis and the technology plan. And we have to look at that first. Assuming that's positive, then we'll develop an RFP and go out for bids for actually selecting the system and begin installing it. But the kinds of things you're asking about, yeah, those should be available in the system as it gets put in. We're going to look at home area networks and where customers could ping their meter from inside the house and compare it to other benchmarks and things like that. A number of different items.
When we say business case, and what's the connection of that with the RFP exactly? It's an internal study you're referring to.
Yes, we're doing a cost-benefit analysis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have one last one.
I didn't know if there was anything else, so I
Yeah,
thought
one
I'd
last
hang around.
one for you. You mentioned about the credit card item. You said maybe temporary. Do you anticipate that going away, the credit card payment? I just heard something maybe they accept it now, but maybe in the future the department might not because of maybe costs. So there's no...
Not that I know of. Nothing has been communicated to me, and I don't know if you want to... I don't know anything about that. I mean, convenience is something we're very proud to offer our customers, and people enjoy that. I've paid with my credit card myself, so I have not heard anything that would lead me to believe that.
Yeah, I did too. Other utilities brought up that issue with credit card payments because they pay a fee, or they make the customer pay a fee.
Right.
But the GWP doesn't. So I was wondering if in the future when cost goes up because of the credit card transaction that might be done away with. So hopefully that doesn't.
Yeah, I've had it.
I'll just add a little bit to that. The credit card fee Glendale does pay for, and a lot of utilities do have their customers pay a convenience fee. We've chosen not to. We do have a utility banking contract which reduced our fees probably by half. We really did a cost analysis on the cost of a walk-in payment versus a credit card payment. The cost of our customers walking in is very expensive, and we've seen a decrease with the walk-in customers. So I personally do not see that going away at all. And she did mention that we take Visa and MasterCard. We do get requests for Americana Express periodically, and that is an expensive credit card to accept. The merchant fees are higher, and the city treasurer's office has made a decision not to accept that, as a lot of merchants just around the city don't accept.
Or is it using those to keep our costs down?
I wanted to ask, do we know what our rate of usage of the system is yet?
Out of all of our customers?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We do obviously track that very closely. So
If I recall, isn't the percentage, though, of online transaction going up significantly year to year?
Just getting my exercise today. We have 28% of our payments are electronic. That's not just from this. That includes ACH from our direct debit program, so any other type of electronic payment, people who pay through their own home banking. So 28% are electronic payments, and that does continue to increase. But somewhere I do have the number of how many customers access this, and I could bring that back to you. It's not something that I personally track.
Well, I did want to say I think the system is excellent. It's a quantum leap in achieving or fulfilling the consumer's right to be informed. So thank you for that. Were there other questions? I did have a question or comment on, we have a number of city services that are being billed under the GWP bill. Have we thought about some kind of label like city services for that? I mean, I assume that you often get a question, people are confused when they think there's a rate increase, for example, in water. They think that the entire bill is going up.
Absolutely. And when there's an increase in rubbish, they call us about that too, even though we don't have anything to do with that. There is a section on the bill called Other City Departments.
Okay.
And next to the entry, let's say rubbish, is the direct phone number for the rubbish, the integrated waste customer service area. But we are the bill, and so they call us and ask us about that.
Yeah, some kind of way we can educate customers so that they have a correct perception might be helpful. So, if you relabel that city services or something, possibly that could work. Just an idea.
Oh, absolutely. And they can call us. We will answer those questions. Everybody who deals with our customers are fully trained in all those other city services fees, how they're structured when they change. So we're certainly available to help you, even though that is not directly money that we're receiving.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think we overlooked Ned Basson under power. I think he had just... Ned, yeah.
Oh, so sorry. I don't know where that
He
was.
just went
but
very quickly.
Okay, all right. I apologize for that oversight. Didn't see it in the agenda.
I'm Ned Basson, and this should be relatively brief, but I just wanted to inform you that back in 2002, we installed a emissions control system on our Unit 5 at Grayson Power Plant, and it was intended to cut emissions of nitric oxides by 50%. And we've been optimizing that over the years, and we were able to get the 50% reduction when we're burning landfill gas mixed with natural gas. When we burn natural gas only, we get the reduction at lower loads, but we don't get the full reduction at higher loads. So we're in the process this week of going to the Air Quality Management District and asking for a variance to do additional testing. And the reason is that when you do testing, you change something and you see what the effect is. And this is a fairly sophisticated system, and do things that you think will reduce the emissions, but they will increase them. So we don't want to violate, so we're asking for a variance so we can do the testing. We're asking for 12 days of testing. 10 of those days, if we exceed the limit, it will only be for a matter of minutes, and then we'll make a change. 2 of those days, we may need to do some base load testing, which is without the system operating, and with the system operating as best we can at the higher loads to see what the conditions are in the unit. Under those 2 circumstances, we would have a few hours of emissions greater than what would otherwise have. The emissions still would be less than what they were before we reduced them by 50%. So we would essentially be meeting the old permit conditions. And I just wanted to let you know that we're going to the AQMD this week to get that variance.
Thank you. Let's see our next item here. We have water coming up.
Yes, conservation update.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, my name is Atina Hartunian, and I'm the Public Benefits Coordinator for Glendale Water and Power. I'm here to give you a brief update on our water conservation efforts. As you can see from our water production chart, our water production was up 27% in April compared to our base year due to higher temperatures and no rain. We are also having one of the driest spring seasons on record. What are our outreach efforts? As part of our water conservation efforts, we have developed water don't waste it magnets, and they are currently being displayed on our GWP fleet, as you can see from the pictures. About 80% of our fleet are currently displaying these magnets. Public Works has also expressed an interest in these magnets, and we are developing more for their fleet. Our source newsletter went out this past weekend and included water conservation and landscaping information. Our next issue of the source will be coming out in August and will also include more water conservation tips and information. Our bill message currently states for customers to check their sprinklers to make sure that they're watering the grassy turf areas and not the walkways. Not sure if you saw the City Hall display as you were walking in. We have information in the City Hall display about water conservation tips and where customers can come in and pick up information on rebates. And we are working on our water conservation website, and we will have that up within the next 2 weeks where customers can directly access all information on water conservation. I will also be covering the next agenda item, which is the Xeriscape agenda item. And Xeriscape is a sustainable low water use and low maintenance garden. It's gardening basically with California native plants, drought tolerant plants, and plants that can stand the heat. It's often mistaken for Xeriscape. It's also called Xeriscape gardens. We prefer to call it a California-friendly garden. I think that term is very commonly used in California, sometimes also called a water-wise garden. It improves overall landscapes and soil, it minimizes turf areas, and it also reduces the need for residential water by approximately 60%. We are working on developing a California-friendly garden at Glorieta Park. And we are working with the Parks Department in removing some trees that are affecting the reservoir and planting California natives. The garden will serve as a good example for our customers to see what a California-friendly garden looks like and help them develop their own. And we are also working with Planning Department to temporarily update their ordinance to include language on xeriscaping in California-friendly gardens so their employees know the policies and procedures for what a California-friendly garden consists of. We are also offering a California native gardening class and training for city employees for neighborhood services, planning, parks, and on June 16 and 17. We will be providing a list of California-friendly plants, planting techniques, and information on the new GWP Water website. And we are also working with Metropolitan Water District to provide rebates to residential and commercial customers on weather-based controllers and rotating sprinklers. That is my brief update. Questions?
Atina, can you go back to the first?
Sure. Let's just do it this way. The production chart?
Yes. Wow.
Yep. We have had no rain, as mentioned.
Now, is this a trend for, what's that, March and April for every year, or it's just this year?
Well, we are comparing it to our base year, which is 06. And the dark burgundy or the pink, that is the base year, and the lavender is this year, 07-08, which is this March and April, as you could see. And then the line here is our 10% goal. So yes, production has gone up in the last 2 months.
Is this an indication of other utilities too, where they had high March and April?
Mm-hmm. A lot of, we're seeing this across the board, and yes, everyone is ramping up their conservation efforts as a result of this. And we are working with MWD, and they are issuing a water alert, and we're working with them on how to increase the message and just let our customers know that they need to be doing more to conserve.
A question on your xeriscaping. Is there other kinds of incentives the city could provide, perhaps, to increase xeriscaping within the city?
We are looking at working with some of the local nurseries, possibly providing some type of rebate or working with them on providing our customers a discount on purchasing California native plants. I know some of the nurseries currently do offer that incentive to customers, but we're looking at a cross-promotion possibly and seeing what MWD can also offer customers and working with them on that.
And as far as conservation goes, have we identified the additional measures that could be implemented to try to get further water reduction?
Yes, we will be meeting with some of the other utilities, Pasadena and Burbank, in the near future, just to kind of work together on the outreach efforts, and we are hoping to, we will be meeting with them actually in July, and just seeing how we can work together on promoting some more conservation messages.
Thank you. I'll have some other comments, but I think I'll save it for new business, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Peter Kavunas, Water Services Administrator. The production numbers from March and April are indeed not what we were hoping for, and they really show the influence of the weather. As Tina mentioned, this spring is the driest spring on record. We, like every other utility, are seeing the results of that. What we thought was a successful conservation program, and for all intents and purposes, it still is not enough to meet our target for these last 2 months. A couple of items to report to you on. One was the Chevy Chase 968 Reservoir and Pump Station Replacement Project. Last month I showed you some pictures from the webcam. The soil work is proceeding, and we're at this point laying pipe that will be pipe underneath the reservoir, whether it's drain pipes and or inlet-outlet pipes. So pretty exciting projects moving forward. The delay that we had encountered with soil and high groundwater has been dealt with, and we're back on schedule. And we've received a proposal from the contractor to accelerate the schedule. They would like to work on Saturdays. And to make that happen, since our original project mitigated negative declaration did not contemplate work on Saturdays, even though it's in the city's municipal code, the original approach was to keep the impact to the neighborhood to a minimum. So we proposed not working Saturdays. The contractor suggested, well, if they could work on some hours on Saturdays, it would benefit the schedule by shortening the construction duration by a little bit. So they're proposing to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Still not the full allotment of hours that's approved in the city code, which is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. A subsequent mitigated negative declaration was prepared, was circulated. Comments were due to us on May 30th, and I believe we've only received one comment that is from the property owner of the golf course. So we're preparing a response to that. The comment seems to express concern about the noise. We believe the noise study that was done by a consultant adequately addresses the noise issue and provides answers to his questions. Staff is going to prepare a response and include that in the package that's going to go to City Council. I believe that the noise issue for Saturday work not a significant concern, certainly not a significant impact. Contractor, in addition to working reduced hours, is also proposing no additional truck traffic. It's only on-site work. And those were the conditions that we measured. We actually did actual sound measurements, and so we're confident that the information we have is very appropriate. We're most likely going to be recommending to Council to approve the Saturday work. That will be happening on June 10th. A couple of other items to bring to your attention. One is the water report that is at your place, showing the latest production numbers are as of April. I would like to point out with a degree of pride that the local production numbers were increased, and so our numbers for the month of April were 38% local production and 62% met. As you recall, our target is to keep below 70% met, and we're doing very, very well in meeting that this month as well as for the full year. And for the next couple of months, you can see the increase in recycled water, a slight bump in April. We expect that to go up quite a bit in May and June. As the irrigation demands get higher, that usually translates to recycled water demand. You also note the local production, again, is about as high as it was, with the exception of last August. It was about as high as it was for the whole year. Our operations folks are putting a lot of care and diligence in the continuous operation of the pumps, which also means some scheduled outages, but it's planned operation, planned maintenance, as opposed to haphazard and ad hoc response. Also, the Water Utilities quarterly report for the third quarter was mailed to you, I believe, was emailed a while back. This was prepared well in advance of this meeting, so we send it to you in advance. And if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. I would like to point out, second to last page on that report is the vacancy rate, which is something we track pretty closely. And you'll notice that we were getting closer and closer to our target of 5%. Unfortunately, last month our principal civil engineer decided to leave the utility and pursue a career with another firm. So just as we were getting closer, we're filling one or two positions, and then another one or two become vacant. So that makes it a little bit hard for us to actually get to that dream state of 5%. If you have any questions on those items, I'd be happy to answer.
I think Commissioner Abraham and I just noticed something on page 8 where the OSHA recordable accident.
Oh, yes.
6. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, OSHA recordables are a category unto themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a bad accident or a lost workday accident. The lost workday accidents were 2, which is right about what we think is typical for a utility our size. What has compiled them to 6 were 2 in the first quarter and 3 in the third. We had a back injury during field work in the last quarter. That is an OSHA recordable accident. We had a fairly unique accident of an employee prying open a valve cap. The valve cap broke, and the fragment flew up from the ground and hit him on the lip and split his lip. That did not cause modified duty or an injury, lost workday, but it's still a recordable accident under OSHA. And then we also had a foot injury during field work. Again, an accident that is not typical. An employee operating a saw, something that they do very routinely to cut pipe, and the saw jumped from the pipe, hit the steel toe of his waiter, and still went past it and nicked his foot. That resulted in modified duty. So they've accumulated on us. We're not happy about it. One of the things we've identified has been a number of vehicular accidents, an increase in those this year. And our response is to bring on board a firm that'll do equivalent to a Smith defensive driving system to put our employees through that again, help improve on that.
Let's see, I believe we had on a past agenda forecast a discussion that was to be had of the cash reserves. Is that to occur in a future month, or was that something that we meant to address with your report here?
Not a specific item that came to my attention, Commissioner Miller. The quarterly report does have an assessment of the ending cash balance. The financials are sort of summarized in the first page. And you'll see our rate increase and the subsequent borrowing has had the desired effect. Our reserves have gone from virtually $3 million and dropping below zero to where we now have almost $50 million and spending it quickly because it's all for capital improvement. But that's shown as a cash balance chart. That's through, it would be through March of 08.
Right, I noticed the graph. It's encouraging. I think it's the established cash reserve was $11 million.
Yes, you're correct.
That is correct. And in next month's budget presentation, we will show the incremental increase in reserves based on the budgeting that we're going to do for the next 2 years. So the good news is we will be slowly increasing reserves. We won't be at the $11 million mark for for at least the next 2 to 3 years, but we're making progress toward it.
Okay. The 50 million shown in your graph, which unfortunately we can't reproduce here, but that's intended to be spent mostly for capital over some period of time.
Yes, over the next 3 years.
Next 3 years? Okay.
It's part of the conditions of the bond issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you very much.
Oral communications.
All right. I have Mr. Herbert Milano. I would like to call him to the stand.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano, commissioners and city staff. You know, every time I come here, I'm always looking for a measurement of energy, not electrical energy, but the energy that comes from employees who are excited and committed to making significant changes, and also your energy with regard to the opportunities that you have. What I think is an incredibly exceptional opportunity to be on the dais giving direction to such an important entity in the city of Glendale. I want to convey to you an experience that I had when I was in college. I worked my way through college, meaning I had a job either full-time or part-time. And I used to work as an administrative analyst trainee for the Los Angeles Unified School District. And it turned out that we had an energy crisis back then, and my job was to figure out a way to reduce energy consumption for the school district, to develop different alternatives and different plans, and basically lay out a project. And so I put a lot of my own energy, into this project, and calculated that we would be saving back then about $800,000 a year from these initiatives that would be just changing some of the procedures that would normally be taken. So I finished my project, I turned it in, and my supervisor, the assistant director, told me, well, thank you very much, Herbert, we'll have another project for you, and took the report and put it on top of a shelf. And I said, well, when are we going to ask him? When are we going to see any type of initiative to put this in place? He says, well, eventually we'll get to that. Here's another project for you. And, I was a youngster in college. I was not about to contest, my supervisor, in this case, the assistant director of the department. But I had a tremendously terrible feeling that in the middle of an energy shortage, at a time when we were pushing our cars, if you were old enough to have a car back then, and to find this lackadaisical attitude about a significant issue not being taken care of. I think my feeling was disgust. And I said, I could never work for government, not if it is going to be like this. And I have not worked for any government entity since, but I could imagine the tremendous frustration that exists when there are individuals who do care about creating something and some other external objectives come into play and things do not turn out as what we expect. So if there are public servants out there with a desire to do something, it comes then you give them the green light. And I think that's the fantastic opportunity that you have to really change the way things are so that we can really accomplish what we could accomplish. I have a thought that we have the opportunity to reduce water consumption by 20%. I seriously believe that, because I've done it in my home, so I know it can be done. And I come oftentimes with ideas, and I look at what the initiatives that are presented to you, and these initiatives do not have, at the end of the day, any type of accountability or measure. Provide magnets, provide displays, send a newsletter, put a message on the bill, landscaping tips. At the end of each one of these suggestions, I was asking myself, how is that going to reduce our water consumption? And are you committed to say this will reduce water consumption by X amount? It's business as usual. It's the way it's been done, not only here, but I would imagine anywhere else. And my objective here is not to come here and criticize the staff, because I could imagine a conflict of interest. I could imagine say, well, if we take this initiative, and if we reduce water consumption by 20%, what's that going to do to our cash balance? Seriously, it's what kind of cash position will we get into if people really started conserving energy and really started conserving water? Are they being given, different messages? I don't know. But the fact that we don't have specifically targeted outcomes, you cannot expect results to come out of this. You can't. You got to reward employees on basically hitting specific targets. And of course, I don't come here to simply make a note of this, to give you suggestions as to things that may possibly work. So I went on the web and I decided to research to see if it would be possible for my tenants to take ownership of the water consumption, because I pay for it, they don't pay for it, so there is no incentive and there's no way for me to charge them directly. So I said, all right, what if instead of giving them a yearly increase in their rents, I decided to say, from now on, the water bill is yours. But then what kind of device would I give them? Well, there are devices that you can put on the water heater, and there are percentages that are industry-wide and is recognized to say that if they use X amount of hot water, then you can extrapolate that they use X amount of total water. And I could eventually check that against my overall bill. But all right, what if I were to put those devices, buy them, put them in, and charge, and say, all right, now you're going to be charged according to what those meters are going to say. Fortunately, in my building, every tenant can open the door and see their water heater in their unit. And they're built, I think, about a couple of hundred buildings, 200 buildings similar to mine that were built in Glendale in the 1980s. So here is an idea to say, look, 62% of your population live in apartments. What if this initiative would work, right? So why not take a sample, a couple of buildings, put an initiative in place, and see if this thing will give the type of outcomes that you expect, a reduction of 20% or 30%. Why not? From the statistics that I remember reading a few months back, it is the landscaping use for residential that takes up the bulk of it. I don't remember. It was 60, 70%. It was a huge amount. So I came back a few months back, and I said, look, why not take a couple of streets, put a plan in place, and see if you can have an impact on 2 blocks, and then put all your energies and go through a whole process of brainstorming and initiate the type of things that are going to give you results, and the things that don't give you results, discard them, and the ones that give you results, you move on it. But we've been discussing this thing since August of last year. And where are the outcomes that truly are significant? And I would say you have to do it irrespective of what that will do to your cash flow. Because if all of a sudden this thing really starts working, then that's another problem that you have to address. But in the meantime, you have to be able to energize these people to come up with definitive measures. I don't believe that any of the stuff is going to work. Seriously. If it is, it's going to be so minimal that it's not going to be measurable. A few months back, there was a suggestion that we put notices on restaurants with regard to ask the customers not to ask for water if they don't want it. So I figured, why not come back beforehand and say, I measured these restaurants and their usage of water before this program, I initiated this program, now I'm going to measure afterwards and say, is it working? And if it's not, forget about it, go into something and say, that idea, it didn't pan out. Okay, good. At least you went through the process. Let's adopt the things that work and that are measurable. But this stuff, how many people are actually going to visit a landscape tip and how many are going to implement it? I'll give you a guess, 20 people if that. Minuscule, basically no effect at all on the overall water consumption that we need to have, which is major. So if the word crisis means anything, then what are the initiatives that you're going to have to address a crisis? I mean, coming here and showing these type of initiatives is not an attitude about crisis. And if there is one goal that societies do, and new towns do, is address the water issue, isn't it? I mean, look at villages in Africa or in Latin America, whatever. What is the number one job? Find a place to access water. It's the number one job. And then the things that we're doing are not working, and we need to energize seriously this department and be a leader, because I tell you, if this department doesn't do it, this type of energy, it's not found anywhere else in Glendale. Here's the only place where I can see measurable outcomes, especially when it comes to the issue of the interruptions in electric use, for example, in providing electricity. So there is already a culture. Let's take advantage of that culture, energize it, and come up with tangible outcomes. Please. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. I would like to point out we are in a period of voluntary conservation, and there have been suggestions that have been made, and I think the graph showed that we did actually meet our targets for several months there, and this news that we have not met the target is new to us. It is alarming. I do have some more additional comments under new business about it, But I do want to assure all the viewers that this board is not apathetic. We're deeply concerned about the issue, and we'll be having additional suggestions as we move on. If we cannot, if there continues to be a serious water supply shortage and voluntary conservation does not work out, the region will be looking, not just Glendale, but the entire region will be looking at mandatory conservation. So anyway, I do want to thank you, Mr. Milano, for your comments. As always, they're very helpful. Let's see, we have no other oral communications, or Mr. Steiger, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Any comments? Okay. Old business. Do we have any old business? Then on to new business. Any new business?
Been wondering for the last couple of months, the fleet that GWP has, what percentage of the fleet is green, CNG, LNG, hybrid? Maybe we can have a report next time if you don't know exactly. I've just been wondering about it.
We do have part of it as hybrid. The exact percentage I don't know off the top of my head, but we can get that for you, and I'll have it for you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Other items? I did have one. I think an issue of water supply that's germane, particularly considering the high water usage we've seen in the past couple of months, and which hasn't been explored too much, is one of agricultural transfers. And I know we've raised it before. I thought about bringing it up under old business. But it's not really something that Glendale can manage, I think, because we don't have, at least on its own, because we don't really have any water source that's being shared with an agricultural community. But the Metropolitan Water District and its ties with the State Water Project does. And possibly it might be helpful to have somebody from the Metropolitan Water District come and give us a presentation perhaps on regional water supply versus demand and their forecast as to how well they can meet that and what they might be doing in the way of agricultural transfers. That would be very helpful, because if we do go to a period of mandatory conservation, it's going to be a burden to ratepayers, businesses, and residents, and anything that can be done to avoid that, I think, is really in our interests.
Yes, and I would agree. So next meeting, we'll try to get someone here from Met to give an overview.
Thank you. And we'd be interested also in their plans for meeting future demands in
Absolutely.
the region. Thank you. Along those lines, the reliability of the groundwater supply, perhaps we could present something about that in tandem. And that's all I had. Okay. Next item then, we have the agenda forecast. Before we begin soliciting comments, I did want to repeat what I understand to be items that have been brought up during this meeting. One was we were going to hear about the budget in July. Mm-hmm. Also, was I correct? In July, we'll start with a layout of your strategic plan?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We'll hear about that. And then earlier, I think Craig mentioned we'll have a business case presentation on enhanced customer communication using remote monitoring devices. Is that correct? I'm sorry. The AMI. Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
To enhance what Craig has mentioned, essentially what Craig is talking about is our study that we're now doing on smart grid. This is part of the smart grid study, and as part of that, it will do a business case on all the various pieces of it, which will then cost justify or not whether or not we should go into certain areas. Hopefully most of it will be cost justified. We believe it will be, but we're having the study done. So.
Okay. And that will be an agenda item, I take it?
Let me ask Craig, do you think we'll actually have that data by the beginning of July?
I don't think the report will be ready. Now, if you wanted just a general overview of the kinds of things we might do in the area you mentioned as far as benefits that might accrue from that, maybe we could give a presentation on the home area network and enhanced metering, but we won't have the report. Yes, the goal is to have it done by July.
Then let's move that to August then.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Anyway, those are the items that I noted in our meeting this evening. Were there other items that any of the commissioners wanted to bring up or anyone else? Pardon me? Fleet report, okay. Yes, please.
There's one thing that I guess recurs every 2 months that Ms. Hartunian mentioned in the past, and she had a graph about water usage and which customer class or which customer segment is using more water or less water. And I think it's due for another review of that. I think the reason why she mentioned in the past that we don't have it monthly because businesses are billed monthly and residential customers are billed bi-monthly. So bi-monthly updates would be good since we have a more complete data set. So hopefully that will give us an idea, as Mr. Herbert Milano mentioned, that we can track that and target the customers that are not complying with our voluntary conservation measures. So if we can do that bi-monthly on that update on which customer segment are using water and how much, that will be helpful.
Any other items for the agenda forecast? Well, we've reached the time where we can adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Seconded?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is hereby adjourned. I'd like to remind the public that our next meeting will be on July 7th, 2008 at 4 p.m. in Council Chambers. Thank you.